Hi everyone, I'm Tegan from the Textiles and Craft Makerspace at Thomastown. Today's video is how to stencil a t-shirt. So we will be using a range of equipment. Some of this equipment's available at the Thomastown Textiles and Craft Makerspace, screen printing frames. Soon you'll be able to borrow some of the kits out to take home. So stay tuned for that announcement. But for today, I'll be showing you how to do using the screen printing kit. If you don't have a kit, you'll be able to just use a regular stencil and just kind of like adapt it that way. Alright, so what you're going to need for today's workshop. Okay, we find that using acetate to create your stencil is the easiest, and this here is just a laminating pouch. And we just shove it through the laminator, clear. It gives you a thick piece of plastic then to be able to cut from. Have your design that you want on printed out. In my case, it's a hand-drawn circle. What we say is if you're a beginner for stenciling geometric shapes, keeping your shapes as simple as possible is easier, because fine lines are always going to be a lot more trickier to cut when you're using a craft knife. Typography also is very tricky because you need to reverse your stencil. So when you put your stencil down onto your fabric, you need to keep in mind that what you're seeing needs to be opposite. It gets a little bit complicated when you're doing typography, so that's why if you're very new to this, we always say stick with basic shapes, build up your confidence first, then take that next step and then try type. It's a lot of fun. You'll get addicted. So I'll move the fabric out the way first. So as you can see, because we're using plastic, very easy then to be able to cut your template. You will want a cutting knife and a cutting mat. So this green surface that I have, and again we have the lovely Louie as an assistant in today's video, is a really great surface for cutting on. If you don't have a cutting mat, don't worry, use your chopping board. If you've got a chopping board at home, it's really great. With cutting, with your cutting knife, always use your lid when you don't have your knife in use. And when you're cutting, you're going to be cutting with your shoulder and your elbow. It's going to be this kind of movement. It's not like a pen, so you're not using this movement. And as you cut, you spin your designs around rather than getting into these kind of movements. So here, I've already pre-cut my design for today just to speed up our video. So got it already cut out. I have my screen now. Once I have it all cut out, it's now about attaching the design to the screen. So this is a silk screen frame. It's 43, and what the numbers in the screen means the thread count of the screen. The higher the thread count, the more detailed the thinner the holes are in between the gaps, which means the higher the detail print you'll get. So for manufacturers, they will be using typically a higher count, so like your 210. I think that's from memory, it's 210 that they use. As you attach your design, so you can see here I have done one side. You then pull the other side tight, pull it tight, then secure it firmly, because then you want it to be as tight as possible. I'm just going to make sure this is really, really tight. So it's super, super tight. If you notice you have like air pockets going on, you can use some double-sided tape as well. That'll help secure your design down even more, especially if you have little pieces of like little bits and pieces of your design. So you can see I've now done this bottom side here. I'm going to do the same for the top side here. Got a bug on my frame, so we'll just move him off. Doesn't need to be part of this work. I don't need a second assistant. So again, pulling it in the middle, pulling it as tight as possible, and pulling it out. The reason why you pull it tight is that you do not want any air gaps, if possible, when you put your frame down, because air gaps means that that's room for the paint to travel through. So we want it to be as smooth as possible. So we can see that the design is on there now. Now I'm going to lay down my t-shirt. Lay that down nice and flat. You can put a piece of card in between the two layers of fabric, so that way your paint doesn't go through. And then lay down your frame nice and flat. The paint we're using today is Deco. It is a screen printing water-based fabric paint, and we get this from Colourcraft in Thomastown. We use a lot of their fabric paints when we teach screen printing at Thomastown. What I'm creating now is called a well, so I'll bring it up closer to the video here. So this is a well, and it'll help me to push the paint through the design with the squeegee. So if you were doing this from home and you didn't have a screen printing frame, you could just put your stencil flat onto your t-shirt, tape it down again so it's nice and tight, get a paintbrush or a sponge, you know, those flat kind of like sponge things, get your fabric paint again and sponge it down over the design. You don't need to use a screen printing frame or a squeegee. This is just because I have this on hand today and it's easier for me to use. But if you don't have that equipment, it's okay. You don't need to use it. Again, I'll move so I'm a little bit easier. Ideally, if I was doing this in branch at the library, I would have two people help. I'd have another person helping me, because screen printing is usually a two-person job. You'd have another person holding the frame down to give it support, and then one person pulling the squeegee. For me, there's only me in this video, so let's give it a shot. So you pull the squeegee towards you once, bang it down, so that way you're pushing your ink back onto your frame. Turn your squeegee back about a 45-degree angle, pull it, your ink back up. You're going to medium pressure, you're not going crazy hard, you don't dragging it. You don't want to rip a hole in the screen frame, but doing that. Do this a couple of times. Because this is a metallic paint, it means it's going to be a bit thicker to push through. You'll find with the other fabric paints, you'll get different textures. And because I can see on here it's not going as nicely as I want it to go through, that could be because I haven't used this paint a long time. I'm going to take it off again. I'm going to spread it out a bit more. I'm just going to move it around, get it going a bit more. So you just want to do it a couple of times so you feel like it's kind of evenly coated. And how you can tell is you can see, you'll be able to see the different colors of the ink. There'll be spots where there actually is ink touching it and spots where it looks like the ink hasn't touched it. You'll be able to tell from it. Alright, so So let's see, has it actually gone through? To lift it up, lift it like this, and it is good. I will raise it up, and that is the t-shirt done, all printed. And that is how you screen print a t-shirt at home. Simple. And so if you didn't have your screen printing, obviously do the exact same method without that and just sponge print it down. Some aftercare with looking after your design after you finish screen printing and stenciling is always read the instructions on your fabric paint. They usually tell you what to do with it and how to look after your design. Typically it is just after it's dry is pressing it with a warm iron or hot iron, but just double check. Each brand is different and they have a different treatment according to their paint, so just do that. If you're using a screen printing frame, always wash it out with a high pressure hose or a strong hose to get rid of the excess paint out of it as soon as possible when you finish using it. Otherwise the paint will dry and clog up the holes and stuff in it, the frame kit. That's basically it for aftercare when it comes to screen printing. If you look after your equipment will look after you at the end of the day. Thanks for watching this video, guys, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, bye.